Hey guys, Steve here, the Faithful Runner, and today it's kind of gloomy and rainy outside, so I'm in here in the studio. I'm going to do a story time video. We did go on to do urban hide and seek this morning, which was fun. Got out and got us some exercise. It was just lightly, very lightly raining then. It's since started raining a little harder. So if you hear that in the background or cars going by, I apologize. I have yet to soundproof this place. Anyway. So for story time, with this being a running channel, I have a running story of probably my worst, but yet my best half marathon, if that makes sense. Well, probably not yet. So it was the Illinois Marathon. It was probably my third marathon at the time, half marathon at the time, and so that morning, me and my wife and my daughters are heading to the race. And what we did is since it was just an hour away, a town an hour away from where I live, we decided we would just get up early that morning and head to the race. Now, I'd like to get to these races an hour early. So if the race was, I think, set to take off at 7 or something like that. So we had to get up at 4 in the morning and drive to leave by 5 to get there by 6, so I had an hour to kind of mess around till the race started. That's kind of my routine. That's kind of what I do when I run these races. I like to get there an hour early. I like to get there and just kind of wander around and get my thoughts collected and just kind of mentally prepare for the miles ahead. Well, so we take off. Plenty of time to get there an hour early. When we get into the city, it's chaos. There's cars everywhere. The traffic is ridiculous. People trying to get to the starting line. It was just unbelievable how crazy the traffic was. And this wasn't my first Illinois half marathon I ever ran. The year before wasn't like this, so we had no clue, or even why the traffic was so terrible. But it literally took us an hour to get to the starting line. So I got there in just enough time to hug and kiss my wife and say bye to my kids, get in my corral, boom, we're off and running. So now I'm running the race. And I'm doing okay. I hit mile 3 and my body starts to feel kind of tired. I just start to not feel right. So I'm thinking, I really didn't have enough time to prepare nutritionally, to eat and drink some coffee and things like that to kind of get me energized, so I'm thinking I need something. So the next about mile 4, I stop into a watering station and I grab me some Gatorade. I drink that down in hopes that would recharge me a little bit. I drink down the Gatorade and I take off. Still kind of struggling, and then around mile 6, right around mile 6, the Gatorade's just not settling. My stomach feels awful. My body feels awful, not sure what's going on. Well, actually, I do know. I mean, after I had time to think about it after the race, I just wasn't prepared. Our winter before this race was terrible. Winter training that year, and a lot of people had said this who ran this race, struggled with this race the same as I did, because winter training just was awful. It was a terrible winter, and getting out there and getting prepared was just tough. So this is why my body was reacting the way it was. I just wasn't ready. So I hit mile 6. The Gatorade's not settling. I feel terrible. My stomach's not feeling so well. I mean, I don't feel like I'm nauseous and going to throw up. I just don't feel good. So I keep pushing forward. I keep pushing. I haven't stopped running yet. The only time I stopped was to run in and get some Gatorade, and then kept going. And so I haven't stopped running at all. And I usually don't in these half marathons. I run completely 13.1 miles, done. Well, this particular race, I hit mile 8, and I was just physically crashing. I was struggling. I was having a real hard time just taking another step. And when your body gets that tired, it starts to get into your head, and it starts to get mental, and you start to tell yourself you can't do it. So I'm trying my best to just keep motivated and keep going. I'm walking a little bit by this time, and I'm struggling. I'm getting mad at myself. It's like, come on, you got to do this race. So I take off. Mile 8, I probably walked a full mile. So mile 9, I take off and I start running. I hit mile 11, I'm done. I hit mile 11, I'm like, there's no way. I'm telling myself there is no way. I'm thinking there's only 2 miles left, but that 2 miles, when you're that exhausted, when you're feeling that terrible, when your body is just not cooperating, and your mind is telling you that this race is over, 2 miles seems ridiculous. 2 miles seems like 50 miles. I mean, so I'm struggling. So I'm walking. I'm at mile 11, walking into mile 11. And I'm walking, and I'm praying, and I'm like, I just want to get through this race. I just want to finish. It was that important at this time. So to not finish just wasn't gonna happen. I told myself I'm going to finish this race. If I have to walk the last 2 miles, or if I have to crawl across the finish line, I'm finishing. Mentally, I'm trying to prepare myself. Mentally, I'm kind of getting angry with myself because I feel like I'm failing. And mentally, I'm ready to take on this race. Physically, I felt like I could not take another step. I was trying, and I'm walking, and I'm praying, and I'm wondering why this has to happen to me. You know, I mean, when you're in that state of mind, and when your body is physically feeling that way, you really start to feel sorry for yourself. This why me stage of the race, like why can't I just finish? Why do I gotta feel that? People running past me, I'm thinking, why do they get to feel good? Why do they get to finish the race? Why do they get to feel good? And here I am struggling, feeling sorry for myself, trying to wash out the negative thoughts, trying to physically muster up enough energy to at least run across the finish line. And I'm struggling. I am struggling. And just as I'm finishing up my prayer, a young man runs past me, and he stops and he turns around and he's like, "Come on, man. You can do this. You can make it. We got, a mile and a half to go. You can do it." And I'm not believing him. And I'm just looking at this young man like, stop lying to me. He's like, "All right, me and you, all the way to the finish line. Let's go." And he's like, come on, let's start running. Let's start running, me and you, all the way to the finish line. And surprisingly enough, his encouragement really started my motivation and really started kickstarting my positive thinking, which started kickstarting my body, which got me, I started running. And I started running next to him. And I was physically tired. I felt physically awful, but I was running, which I didn't even think I could get going again. I felt like I could not take another step. And this young man's encouragement motivated me enough to take off running. Me and him were running side by side. We ran all the way to mile 12. We started heading around through these corrals after mile 12 and started getting in through and heading towards mile 13. And the whole time he's like, "Look, we just passed mile 12. We're on the home stretch. We're heading to the finish line. You can do this. You've got this." And this young man ran with me all the way to the finish line. We crossed the finish line. We just kind of blended into the sea of people at the finish line together, our medals, and I lost track of even where it was at to even thank him for his motivation. And we didn't have much conversation. It was just him trying to keep me positive, trying to keep me motivated all the way to the finish line, which he did. I wasn't talking much because I was physically exhausted, and I was really doing everything I could to keep going. But if it wasn't for this young man, I don't know if I would have finished. I don't know. To not finish a race a mile and a half out, I would have had a hard time with that. But he motivated me. He encouraged me. He kept me going, and that was awesome. And even though this race was so physically bearing on my body, spiritually, I'm praying. I'm asking God to see me through this race, to get me through this race. And even though that seems so small of a request from God, it wasn't small at all. He sent someone to get me through that race, and they did. And I finished. I got my finisher's medal, and I've never stopped thinking about that race or that day or that young man who took the time out of his race to encourage someone to finish. And that was great. That was a great race. That physically terrible race turned out to be the best race that I've ever ran, and yeah, it was great. It was awesome. It was awesome, and that is the mindset of most runners. To see someone struggling, knowing what that feels like, and just wanting them to finish because that's all they want to do is finish the race. And that's why I'm a runner. That's why I run races. That's why I like to be around runners, because they are simply the most positive people you'll ever meet. And every one of them is that way. I've never met a negative runner. and they're encouraging and just awesome people to be around. So to surround yourself in a race with 20-some plus thousand runners with different journeys and goals and things like that just fills me up inside when I'm there, and usually that's really what gets me across the starting line and pulls me across the finish line. And honestly, I've struggled in other races too, and I've thought of that young man who took the time to help me cross the finish line, and every time, that's all it takes. So that's staying with me. Even if this young man or another young man or someone isn't there to encourage me, just what he did that day encourages me every time I struggle, or even out training. When I'm training, I think of that. It encourages me to keep pushing on and get to your finish line, get to your goal, accomplish whatever you need to accomplish. You can do it no matter what. Sometimes it takes a prayer. Sometimes it takes feeling a little goofy, asking God to help you finish a task like running a race or even training for a race. But that day I knew God was listening, and that day God helped me with something as little as finishing a race. And if He'll help me with something as little as finishing a race, man, He'll help me with anything. So there you have it, guys. That is today's vlog, story time. And if you're on a weight loss journey, or if you're on an exercise journey, or to physically get healthy again, man, just do it. I mean, that's all it takes. Just do it. I mean, it's gonna suck sometimes, to totally be honest. To physically or to stop eating certain foods, or to go out and start exercising, there's going to be days it's going to be rough. There's going to be a lot of days it's going to be rough. There's going to be times where you're discouraged, or times where you feel like it's just not worth it, but man, it's worth it. So stay healthy, eat right, stay healthy, exercise, move your body, burn some calories, and just honestly, it does make you a happier person, and it changes you in many, many ways. Aside from physically and health-wise changing you, it changes you in so many other ways, and you will never, ever regret it. So, thank you so much for watching, guys, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.